Hi, folks. This is an installation of L2A Investigations, and Allison's not with me right now. She's doing her other work, and I wanted to just do an update quickly about the Imran Awan, I knew I was going to get that wrong, situation, which we've been following for many months now. I'm going to say that it's well over a year. A lot of people haven't heard about this story, or they don't give it much credence, but this is something that's been happening for, I think, about 16 years. I'm going to say 16 years, under 20 and over 15 years. The Awan brothers scandal is going to break open at a certain point, but it's been a long time coming, and a lot of people have kind of dismissed it. It's bizarre to me because I don't understand why people don't get the correlation between this and, say, election rigging, that sort of thing. So, of course, what's happening right now is that the DNC is accusing everybody of what they're doing themselves. It's ever been the case. So that is exactly what's happening with the Awan brothers situation. Now, those of you that haven't been following it may want to take a look back at my interview with George Webb that was done, I believe it was May the 9th or so. I'm going to say May the 9th of 2017. This information has been out there for a long time. I mean, it wasn't George Webb that came up with it the first time, but he was following the news. And this is one of the things that we're trying to encourage on this show, is for people to just do their own investigation and to be following these stories. This is a really, really important story, and it's hopefully, as I say, it's going to come to light, because when I talk to people about this, they say, well, you know, if it was true, then they'd be reporting on it in the mainstream media. So I think what's happening now is that people who have been trusting in the mainstream media are now getting the sense that there is something going on that is keeping the actual news from us, because how often have we actually heard this information about Imran Awan? I'm so sorry. I get that wrong every time. Anyway, the Awan situation, because it does involve more than he and his brother and his wife. It involves his whole family. It involves Pakistan. It involves everybody that is within his sphere. And the thing that's most important to remember here is that it involves Debbie Wasserman Schultz, and it involves so if any of you remember her getting after the chief of police in DNC, the DNC police, that was about a piece of equipment that apparently belonged to, quote unquote, the member, which was her. In fact, what it was a laptop that was owned by Awan, who was her on her staff, and she kept on staff many months after it was found out that he was leaking to the Pakistani government. Now, of course, that didn't gain any traction either. But finally, we have some evidence that, you know, the mainstream media cannot ignore this. And I'm really hoping that you will share this information. This is from the Daily Caller. If you want to share this video, that's great too. But the main thing is to go to the source and find this information. Get information from the Daily Caller articles so that you yourself can be informed, that when people ask you about where you get your information, you'll have good sources. And that's what we've been encouraging on this channel and on this program in particular. It's not about just giving you some stories to look at and get mad about. It's about a call to action, and that's what character-driven is all about. It's about being driven by character, and out of that comes live-to-air investigations, because every time that there is a situation that is not being covered by the mainstream media, we want our audience members to be the people who are getting it out to the people that matter, and that may be via your Facebook page, it might be via Twitter. It doesn't really matter how we get it out there, but we need to have the evidence to be able to discuss this with people. One of the things I've been doing is creating mugs and that sort of thing, just with some provocative statements on them, like this one. It would be, ask me about Imran Awan. asked me about the Awan brothers. I think that's so important that we have that that discussion with people, because it's great when you have a coffee cup and people just go, okay, I will. And then you have the information. So this is what we're here to do. Without going into it too much more, I think people understand that if they've been tuning into the channel at all. And for newcomers, you can find that out by looking at some of our previous videos and information. So many interviews out there that you could take a look at. Anyway, this is a story that is breaking right now. It is, well, okay, it did come out on the 18th, and so it's been breaking for 16 years, and so it's just finally coming to the point where, I'm feeling like we can share this with people and say, look, we've got all of the evidence that we need. You want to hear about election rigging? You want to hear about hacking? This is all a cover-up. Everything that the mainstream media has been doing since November of 2016, and even before that, I would say we're talking about Bernie Sanders. We're talking about times before the 2016 election was taking place, when this was called into question, and it's been swept under the carpet. And it just shows you how efficient the mainstream media has been, and some of the alternative media as well, in distracting us from what the real story is. This is the real story, folks. Forget about Russia, and we can talk about Pakistan, we can talk about a number of different countries. It doesn't matter. It's about the integrity of the information that is being held on servers, including your banking information, including your income tax information. All of your information is vulnerable when you've got people who are able to hack into the government system. In this case, it's actually members of Congress. And, you wonder why people are able to be blackmailed or whatever's happening, that they're not actually taking any action in this case. But when things come to light, we've got Comey out there indicting himself left and right. You've got McCabe that's being exposed. None of this was supposed to happen. Hillary was supposed to win, and all of this was supposed to be kept under wraps. Well, you can't keep it under wraps forever. You have to, at a certain point, admit that there's some metadata, there's some information that cannot be hidden. So just briefly, this is just a brief update, and I encourage you to go to the Daily Caller. It's today's top article. I think it's going to trend very quickly, and I'm hoping that we can help it do that. If you want to create a meme, if you want to put it out there in any other form other than a video, you want to take apart some of this video and put it out there, all we ask is that you refer people back and get them involved in this channel as well. And we do mean involved because we're hoping that people will give us their own tips and information. Speaking of which, please go to tipsok.com and consider giving us a tip of various different kinds. And the tipping site is basically that. It's to ensure proper service, and it's just an old-fashioned idea. If you like what's happening, if you've got other people that you'd like to tip, this is basically an audience-run site. It's not run by the people that are seeking money, but it's run by the people who are trying to encourage creators of various kinds. Now, that being said, I have put the site together myself as an alternative to Patreon and all these other sites that require creators to go in there and talk about their projects and that sort of thing. It's very high upkeep, and there are a lot of creators that just don't have that technology or skills, or they just want to play their music or do whatever it is that they do. So think of it as a tip jar or an open guitar case where you're able to just throw in a little bit of change that you might have in your pocket and pass around the phone to somebody else that might want to make a contribution. Anything is much appreciated to all of the creators on the site, including Dr. Judy Wood, who does PSYOP recovery programs. So basically anybody who's on this channel, and we invite anybody else who would like to be part of that as well. That's my little advertising break. That's how we pay our rent. Right now, Allison is out slogging away at her job, and I'm covering for her so that we could get this out. In fact, I haven't even told her that I'm doing this, And we can't just catch can. Some people have heard her as she's on the train going back and forth from work, and she's reporting on various stories. We're committed to getting the information out to you. But more than that, we hope that you will become committed to finding out this information for yourself. I can't tell you this enough, folks. This is not a channel where we're hoping that you'll tune in and sit back. We're really challenging people to get involved, to get the information you need, so that when somebody asks you around the water cooler, a specific question as it comes out into the news, you have the information you need. And a perfect example of that is yesterday when Allison was at work, because we have our own questions. Somebody was asking her about what she was doing with her investigations. And her question to them, we were talking about the moon landings and the fact that I did an interview with Bart Sibrel, and she's just kind of investigating that herself, finding out things. It's important that we find these things out for ourselves and that we don't try and inflict them on one another. But anyway, the point is that I always ask people, my first question is, how did we get through the Van Allen radiation belts? And she did that herself. Most people have never heard about it, but you have to know yourself about the history of that. And I'm not, before you ask that kind of question, you can't just say it in a vacuum, and you can't, I don't believe that it's possible for us to inflict information on other people. It's important that they ask and that we have the answers. So again, that's the philosophy behind this channel generally, and this show in particular, L2A Investigations. I won't go on too much more. I'm going to do an opener for the show so that we can actually get that all out in a much shorter way so that people understand what the point is here. But please do get involved, and please come back and find out more as we update the obscure stories that are happening all around us that we may not have heard of, and get the word out, because we're trying to inform people, we're trying to break through the fog and get to the point where people understand that the world is not as it seems, but there are people dying for these causes. There are people whose information is being hacked. There's people that are sitting back and listening to the narrative about Stormy Daniels and all this other crap that's really just a whitewash for what's really going on. And frankly, if people are more interested in Stormy Daniels and the sex life of people who are in power, then, go all the way and go right back to the beginning of the history of the country and concern yourself with that. It's a great distraction, folks. It's a way to keep us on salacious and very meaningless issues. And the ironic thing is, when I went by a newsstand the other day and I saw a National Enquirer, I saw a real news story about Hillary and Obama and how they rigged the election. And I thought, it's bizarre. We live in a bizarre world where when I look at National Enquirer, I see better information, better researched information, and more honest reporting than I see in the mainstream media. So we are not National Enquirer, but I have to give them cred for their willingness to put things out into the public eye. And it's unfortunate people just dismiss it because they're taking in all of the garbage and they're dismissing all of the meat and potatoes. So let's take a look at this article. I'm just quickly putting it up on the screen. This is a down and dirty report. I'm between appointments, I'm between interviews, and I'm just giving this to you so that you can go ahead and take it wherever you want to, share it with your fellow workers, or do you call them workers? The people that you work with, the people in your family. I know a lot of people tune in to PSYOP Recovery Program on the Saturday with Dr. Judy Wood, and it's very common that people will tune in and say that they have people in their family that think that they're nuts. Well, I'll tell you right now that they're going to find out very, very different circumstances are controlling the news right now, and have been for many, many years. And this is the kind of evidence that I think that you need to be able to show them. Now, I'm not suggesting that people will go over to the Daily Caller. I don't want to get into that argument with people that are not willing to look at anything other than the mainstream media. But if you go there, as Dustin has, thank you, Dustin, for sharing that with me and letting me know that you are following up on that. If you go over and get the information straight from the horse's mouth, as it were, rather than just sending people to the article or sharing it on Facebook, you'll have a lot more credibility and credence. And so this is what I'm suggesting that you do. So basically the situation is that Imran Awan, why do I have such a hard time with that name? I think it's the IMR and then Awan. So I'm just going to say Awan so that I'm not butchering that. I'm really sorry. It's just a thing. I'm reading it and I'm not the greatest reader in the world. I'm much better off the cuff. But this is why I like to ingest the information myself. I haven't had a chance to do that in this particular case. So I'm reading it pretty much with you, having knowing the background and having a lot of the other information that substantiates this in advance. So we have this top aide, Awan. He was an aide to Debbie Wasserman Schultz, and you probably remember that story from last year. Hopefully you were following that. But he actually has been serving the Congress for the past 16 years. He had no security clearance. He was part of the SES program, which many of you will understand that the Senior Executive Services program is not accountable to anyone. They consider it truly is the deep state. You know, it truly is the way that the government is run from behind the scenes, and they really do see themselves as being entitled. And I think you'll notice that a lot of the people in what's called the shadow government are actually SES members. And if you look at their role in the government, you see that the president has no jurisdiction over them, really. It was started in 1979 under the Carter administration, and it allows people like Awan to get into these positions, and he's just one of thousands. But it allows people like Schultz to put them in. And so we're looking at Nancy Pelosi, we're looking at all these people who, Chuck Schumer, they all knew about this situation. And the Awan brothers, and he and his wife as well as another brother, were fired as of, I believe, February 2nd, 2017, when this came to light, and yet they continued on doing the work under the auspices of that program, the SES program. They were working with impunity, and Wasserman Schultz said that he was coming in to work on printers and such. He's working on a system that is interconnected, folks. And, you have people like Seth Rich who have given their life ostensibly. We don't know that he actually died, but I think that we can safely assume that he has died based on the information we have, if not the evidence, circumstantial evidence anyway. And you've got people that are dying over this, and we've got people who are totally committed to unraveling this ball of wax. And so I ask that you get involved in this particular situation and pass it around, because this is really vitally important information for people who think that their Congress has been compromised. We know it is. I mean, there's no question. The information is not just being circulated in Congress. It's not just being hacked into, a local system. It's actually being passed along to other countries, in this case, Pakistan. So, if Pakistan has it, Russia has it, everyone has access to this. America's for sale. And if you want to stop the sale and help Trump in that effort, especially with the child trafficking, which is something that I'm particularly interested in, but this is a start right here. Start with the things that are not difficult to substantiate or to prove. So we have a whole story here that I'd like you to take a look at, but we have the fellow named Minhas. Rashid Minhas is he is the business partner of Awan's father. So I don't want to confuse you with this. It's important that you take a look at yourself. Anyway, he's come forward and said that Awan bragged that he had the power to change the U.S. president. Okay, take that in. when people are talking about the PP dossier and all the other crap and Stormy Daniels and all the other so-called information that's out there on the web that's being reported on by people that call themselves journalists, and you hear it on every channel, it's just confirmation that there's a cover-up going on and that it's being perpetrated by the Mockingbird media. If you don't know about the Mockingbird media, please go back to the Church Commission report that was put out in 1975, where the CIA absolutely admitted that they were involved in dictating the news stories. And if you don't know that they're dictating the storylines in the TV shows that we're watching and the Hollywood movies, then you need to do some research there. We're not going to talk about that on this show, but we may broach it on another show. But do take a look at my interview with Stephen Shellen. He was in A River Runs Through It, and he was the lead actor in Counter-Strike. And he has personal information about that. He's been a targeted individual ever since he decided not to go along with the program. We know what happened to Gus Grisham and various other people in so many different areas, so many different storylines where they have mysteriously disappeared, burned up, been found drowned. So we're just drawing the lines, and we're saying this is not allowed to happen anymore, and we need your help. So thank you for letting me know about George Webb, because that's exactly what I wanted to tell people about through the story that he has put forward. And it is a story. It has metadata. It has evidence, but it's a story. And until it has facts and until it has information that can be provided as evidence, he puts forth a story. Now it's actually being substantiated. He gets his information from other people who have their ear to the track, as it were. So now it's all coming out. Now the next step was that. So here it says, asked for how he knew this. He said that on one occasion in 2008, so we're talking a long time ago, 2008, when a, quote, USB was given to Rayman Malik by Imran's father, my brother Abdul Razak was with his father. So there's this first-hand testimony information, and it'll be interesting to see how the media handle it. Let's get this out there, folks, so that people can't hide this, because this is going to break open so many different things between Comey and his sanctimonious book and McCabe's firing and, so many other things. We need to get to the Clintons. I mean, that's really where all of this will lead, to the Clinton Foundation and to inevitably to the child trafficking, all of the nefarious activities that have been happening. And I have to give full credit to Trump for having signed the executive order of December the 21st, 2017, in which he addressed the child trafficking as being one of the primary issues that are facing us right now. Right now, children are suffering. People are suffering at the hands of other people. They're not free. We are free to help them. And this all ties together. All of this ties together. And I'm not going to connect the dots for you. I'm hoping that you can do that and take a look at some of the other information. I'll try and provide some of the source materials so that you too can see how all of this intersects. So Awan's father delivers the USB to Malik, and then after that point, 4 Pakistani government intelligence agents were with his father 24/7 to protect him. And so Minas did not say what was on the USB, but we can pretty much assume that it was important information that had been taken without anybody's permission, but certainly with people's knowledge. And I wonder how closely Wasserman Schultz, Clinton, all these people were. And, you know, the fact that Clinton had her server at home meant that people had access. So she could say, oh, no, I didn't, I wasn't involved in this. All she has to do is give people access to her server, folks. That's all she needs to do. She doesn't need to be actively involved, but she was certainly getting paid to allow people into the business of the country. And she was selling America. So all of this is the same situation, guys. This is selling America by the pound. And if you don't think that's happening, then keep reading, because this is a very important document to allow you to understand the seriousness of the situation. If you think that anything is safe, then this will teach you that it's not. But the solution is to bring it to the light. The best thing to do is to bring things to the light so that we can take action and let the rest of humanity know what's happening behind the scenes. And again, the best solution for a wound is to expose it to the light and to let it heal after that process. And sometimes it's a painful process. So the House Office of Inspector General charged on September 30th, 2016, the data was being, quote, funneled off the House network by the Awans as recently as September 2016, shortly before the presidential election. So there's a couple of links there that I hope you'll follow. The funneled off the House network will take you to, again, I'm doing this in real time. This is called live to air investigations. That does not mean that I have all the information at all. I'm presenting it to you as I see it, but I'm also letting you in on some of the background that I have been looking at now. So that is linking to another article from the Daily Caller, and I will leave that to you. As I said, I'm in the middle of and I'm between interviews, and I have an appointment in about 20 minutes, so I'm just getting this out to you. Hopefully you can, and hopefully you'll come back. Go on to characterdriven.com, get involved there, and bring information to us there. Bring it here wherever you can. If you have more information to share, that would be great. We're trying to compile all of this evidence as best we can and to get it out to people. So, okay, it says nearly Imran's entire immediate family was on the House payroll. And we're talking a lot of money, folks. We're talking about the same income. These people were making the same income each as the Congress people themselves. So these are people that were unvetted, non-Americans. You know, it's not a matter of whether people are from another country or not. It's a matter of, did they go through the process? Are there exceptions to the rule? Are people being let through without the proper vetting? And the biggest question is, why? When you see that happening, you know that there's got to be something going on. And again, that's the Senior Executive Services branch that is overseeing all of this. And there's a reason why people are working in Congress. Now, how many of you have your entire family working in Congress at $160,000 a year? How many of you are buying multiple houses? How many of you are involved in a number of different acquisitions, you know, as far as purchasing property? And how many of you know people who are not even citizens, have not gone through the citizen process, who are involved in those things? Just take a look at the evidence. Take a look at the situation that they're now in. They're being tried under a property scam, you know, under the auspices of a property scam. That's what I'm trying to say. And that also is a cover-up for what the real issue is. And so you can't let it stand. It can't stand. It's not allowed. So then we have other information here that I'll leave to you, but it's important to note that Michael Pudzinski says that, quote, system administrators, quote, hold the key to the kingdom, unquote, meaning that they can create accounts, grant access, view, download, update, or delete almost any electronic information within an office. Because of this high-level access, a rogue system administrator could inflict considerable damage. Keep that in mind, unquote. Here is the video that you can watch at your leisure, and you can continue on with this article. It will give you all the information you need to be able to do further investigation. And just wanted to mention that Minas is now in U.S. federal prison for additional fraud. The DCNF, now I've got to go back to that. DCNF, it mentioned it back here. I think that's the Inspector General's office, but anyway, it's up at the top. I'm sorry for being so quick on this. It's usually I would have my notes, and I just decided to go live to air as the name of the show indicates. So I'm just going to go back down here. He's one of the many people with past relationships with the Awans who have said that they believe they are aggressive opportunists who will do anything for money. And part of the Minas story correlates with observations elsewhere. And there's court documents which are, I'm just going to take a look at the link here. It is, okay, that's going to be another Daily Caller link in this article here, the court documents. And within that article, you'll be able to dig deeper. So though they are referencing their own articles within this article, they're not giving you the source documents. You'll notice that when you go to those other articles, you'll find some of the sources there that you need to be able to substantiate what they're talking about here. Now, Haji would frequently boast that Imran's position gave him a political leverage. Numerous Pakistani residents told the DCNF. Now, I'm sorry, I didn't go back in the article to find out what the DCNF is, but you could easily find it yourself. And I'm going to leave that to you. I apologize. As I say, I normally would have written that down. But anyway, this is the quote. "My son own White House in D.C., he would say, according to Minas. I am kingmaker." When he went back to Pakistan, apparently Awan would have like ticker tape parades, the equivalent to that, because they saw him as an incredibly important person and able to, and he was very intimidating too. He's abusive. I do believe that it's this kind of person that's also involved in very many other abuses, and I'm not going to make any accusations here, but it's this kind of mentality, let's put it that way. We're not going to peg it on him in particular, but it's this kind of mentality that oversees so many of the dirty operations in the world. And, unfortunately, it's right there in Congress as well. There's probably a lot of blackmailing that's been going on as well. But I'm talking about people that are just dirty, and they will do things for money. It's not restricted to people from other countries. We're talking about that being a motivation throughout history. If you're looking for motivation, you've got it right there. I am a kingmaker, is what his dad said. And when you have that for a father, then it's no wonder that the branch does not fall far from the tree as far as Awan is concerned. Again, I'm going to wrap this up. I'm going to let you guys read the rest of this because it's all there. It's very good information. Who is the... Yeah, so it's Luke Rosiak has been on the case with this. He's been working on this story for quite some time. And so we've got Wajid Ali Saeed, I guess that's how you pronounce that name, who is now involved as well. And so do take a look at their work. I sometimes wonder if the Daily Caller isn't a collection agency in and of itself, because sometimes they take you just so far. And what you'll notice about collection agencies, as I call them, and as they're known by a lot of people, is that they'll make you feel like you're really on the right path, that you found an alternative to the mainstream media. And sometimes they will just take you along the path to the point where you are really believing what they say. And then they'll throw a curveball and they'll have you go along a different path with them. And so I ask you to be very diligent in doing your own research and not believing any of your sources, including this one, because I'm not even giving you any sources in this case. We do give you sources in most of our shows. This one is kind of down and dirty, just kind of getting the word out. And, I do believe this is urgent, folks. I do believe that this is important, especially with all of this information coming to the fore, and you know, with people like Comey, you know, you see the lying that goes on, and it's so hard to decipher what is the truth and what isn't. We're not here to spoon feed you with the truth, because the truth is only found in metadata and evidence. That's all you can go by. You cannot go by anything else except your own investigation. If it doesn't ring true, be willing to say I was wrong. And one of the things I have a problem with in the current situation with Q is that regardless, you know, people will say, oh, he or she's real, or, you know, I don't really care. Where a group of people are going along and listening to a small body of people who are deciphering the information, and they're taking it without vetting it themselves, then they are part of the problem. The job is great. If you have some information that's new to you from Q, frankly, you know, you could have found that out a year ago. You could go on the dark web and you could find the same information there. So, you know, if you haven't been there, it's going to probably look pretty new and pretty exciting. But this is not a matter of saying this person's wrong, this person's right. It's not about people. It's not about the messenger. It's about the message, and how much are we willing to do to get involved ourselves in finding the information behind the message, doing our own critical thinking, doing our own investigating, so that we know, and how many people are willing to say, okay, I could be wrong about that. That's what this show is all about. That's what this series is about. That's what Allison and I are working on. We're not here to shove anything down people's throats. We're here to show you what real investigation looks like. And when people in the alt media are getting after each other and saying, well, this person lied to me and that person didn't tell me the truth, and da-da-da-da-da, it's a distraction again. That's what the bad guys want. They want us to be infighting. They want us to be at each other's throats. We don't do that here. You know, if trolls come in, fine. Hopefully they might have a little education in trying to use critical thought rather than repeating. You know, we want to be reporters, not repeaters, and yet that is a bumper sticker right there. So I don't want to go too far with that, but you get the idea. We don't want to be in an echo chamber. Be willing to have your ideas vetted, be willing to have them challenged, and be willing to say, this is what I believe and this is why. So there's Allison. Hi, Allison. I was just saying that you're at work, and I wanted to bring this to people's attention because I'm encouraging people to follow up on this story. Basically what's happened, and I'm not going to go over the whole story again, but for Allison's sake, is we are we come on. This is not an episode. I wanted to make that clear to the audience. This is just an update. We do our episodes together when, you know, we've actually got the facts and we have a presentation to make. I call this an update, and it's just a way of bringing something to people's attention when we see them. And I do have to leave in a very short time, but since Allison's with me in the chat, I just wanted to honor that and say hi to her, and hopefully people will appreciate the fact that there she is, working away, slogging away, and she has the time to come in and check on the story. So I've put the headline up on the screen again so that Allison and others that have joined us later will be able to see that this is from the Daily Caller. It's, I like that, the investigative group. And they truly have been an investigative group. Again, don't believe everything that people say. Luke Rosiak is a very good reporter. I appreciate what he's done. But then again, he has not taken advice. And then you get back and forth, the George Webb and Luke Rosiak, but I think they have a healthy relationship with each other in the sense that they challenge each other. And, George would get on the air last year and say, well, you're not willing to say this, but you're willing to say that. It's an interesting thing when we start to really want to get to the truth. We are definitely willing to be challenged, and we're willing not to get into these petty arguments about personalities and that sort of thing. I disagree with a lot of people. I still respect them. I think it's important, as long as they're respecting me. It's treating each other as you want to be treated, the golden rule in any situation, reporting or otherwise. So this is not about who's right, who's wrong. I'm just building on the facts as I have found them myself. And I'm encouraging people to go over here, because what we have in a nutshell is Awan's dad had a business partner, and he's now an ex-partner, and he is reporting to the Daily Caller that there was a thumb drive that was passed along to the dad, and the dad was under 24-hour protection from the Pakistani government as a result. So those are really interesting facts. They're very important facts for you to follow up on, because if you put those facts together, then you understand that there's something more to the Awan situation than had been previously known. And what we'll find now is that people will start turning on each other. What I was just talking about earlier, where people turn on each other in the alt media, that's a human nature thing, and it's going to happen. It's going to happen with Comey. It's going to happen with McCabe. It's going to happen with Strzok and Page and all the people involved in this PP dossier, all this other crap that's been circulated around. They're going to start turning each other in to protect themselves, and just watch the dominoes fall. And we can watch from a perspective of saying, we're not interested in all the infighting. We're not going to be distracted by the Comey book and all of the observations about Trump's tie length and how big his hands are and all the rest of it. All the slights from a person who is very insecure. We don't need to know that. We don't need to know any of that stuff. All we want is the facts, and we can see it's a distraction from the fact that this is a person who subjected himself and others to a lot of corruption, and was not living a very character-driven life as in the position he held, as many of the people who are now coming to the fore are confessing through their books, through all of their articles. Brazil, all these different people are trying to cover their butts through their books and their book tours and all the rest of it. So I'm going to leave you folks with this. I'm going to leave you to do further investigation, and I'm going to go off to do my work, and Allison is probably going to go back and do her work, and we will be checking back. Sometimes we're just too tired to do the show at night, and I speak for both of us and each of us, but we're really committed to this process, and I thank people like Dustin who come in and check in, and if we can get more people like Dustin, and I don't mean to just pick out one, because I see other people, Bhakta Peter and various other people who check in, and I thank you so much, and I hope we can make this an exchange as much as a report. And I will leave you with that, and I'm going to put we're going to have an extra very soon. It's just not possible right now, and we will talk to you very soon, and I'm going to sign off for now, and we will talk to you again later this evening. Goodbye.